Get my ears back on.
There we go.
How are you, sir?
I'm well, very well, as a matter of fact.
Alhamdulillah. Good.
Alhamdulillah is correct.
Uh-huh.
And it's wonderful to see you again.
As
And
always.
I feel there's a kind of a completion when we meet like this, especially on Monday mornings. It's
Yes.
become, it's kind of like, you remember in the old days, black and white TV when Walter Cronkite was on every evening.
Yeah.
And my dad would come home from work and there'd be the news, and then everybody was settled down, when as soon as I heard Walter Cronkite's
Yeah.
voice,
Yeah. Yeah. It was all right. The world was all right.
Yeah, the world was all right. At least it seemed to be. In
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
case,
Vietnam
yeah.
War, skirmishes,
Yeah.
bloodletting all over the planet. But when you heard Walter,
Yes,
yes,
yes, it was
indeed.
kind of like that, isn't it? It's amazing how easily we are distracted and comforted by the wrong imaginations.
Yeah.
And uh, so may it please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us through the means of our interactions and conversations to destroy some of those vain
Yes.
imaginations, dear brother. So our brothers and sisters who do tune in to listen to us can gain a closer approximation to our source creator. And that is the purpose of Salat. That is the meaning of Salat. And,
Absolutely.
Amina, my dear wife, and we had our early morning teat and pillow talk in the days. And she was consorting with one of her online friends about certain Quranic translations. And after they had talked about this, that, and the next thing, she lay down there and sort of was thinking, and she said, yes, what about this word? And I said, and she said, desolat, desolation. You
Yeah.
see?
Yeah. You're
I
absolutely
said,
right.
oh, I said, darling, you are thinking the right way
That's
here.
how this
I
works.
said, I
Yeah.
said, Instructor Bilal is going to be so proud of you.
Yes, indeed. Oh, she just moved to the head of the class.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's what I
Yeah.
thought. And so
Yeah.
I was pondering the subject today, and let me try to introduce it I'm going to hit you with a curveball here, um, and which I'm sure you're more than capable of catching. Um, the concept of being close and then separate from um, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala um, is akin to this whole idea of heaven and hell. And then, we've got scriptures that talk about the abomination of desolation. And everybody has this literal imagination, of a sort of post-apocalyptic nuclear explosion. But I think it's worse than that. I think it's the absolute loss of Rahim grace and the maintenance of existence. And I can't imagine a worse state for mankind to be in. That is desolation. Now, I want to try and connect that with the concept again of proximity and see what Nunetics can teach us about this concept, heaven, hell, desolation, and in terms of, wait for it, wait for it, in terms of slavery and servitude. Okay, now if I make a, if I purchase you and I force you to serve me, that's not an act of your free will, you see. And we all sort of understand that, and we know that the Barbary pirates did this to more white folks than white folks ever did it to black folks. But that's not part of the popular narrative. But the narrative I'm interested in here is the difference between slavery and service.
Great
Okay.
question.
as a big question. I think it has to be answered. I think it should be addressed. It hasn't been addressed appropriately, in my mind. For the sake of you people out there wondering about the American reparations to the black slaves out there, I just want to remind you, as I was recently reminded by one of my Twitter pals, look, Abraham Lincoln already did that. Okay, he gave every black liberated slave 40 acres and a mule. Now, I don't know what else can be done, to replace that, you see, but it was done. Now, that's an act of reparation, you see, and that's okay. It's a sort of an act of contrition on the part of the governor of the former slave masters. And what it has to do with service is, well, the land was given, the mule was given. Okay, whether or not a man can do something with that is up to his own gifts and whatnot. But in any case, he was set free, and he could have sold the land to somebody or got something from it. But it doesn't ring quite correctly with the concept of slavery anymore. Okay, so he's been set free. So what does he choose to do? You see, does he choose to continue service? Well, some slaves did. Okay, they chose to say, well, look, we were better off, picking cotton out in Mass's field. Maybe we're going to be all right if we just do it for a certain amount of income now and see if we can save our money. And I'm sure some people tried to do that. But the idea I'm trying to get at here is slavery is, and the Quran speaks about this. The Quran says, oh, my slave. But is it slave? You see, that's what I want to get at the nunetics here. Because is it slave or is it servant? Now, if I'm a rich, wealthy fellow, upstairs, downstairs type of, rich British gentleman, and I hire somebody to be my butler, my cook or something, I make a contract with them and they serve me according to the terms of that contract. Okay, and there's a legal arrangement, and if you look into Black Law's dictionary, you can see, okay, well, as soon as we make a verbal arrangement and I offer you terms and you accept, that's a contract. Okay, and we have undertaken an obligation towards the other with respect to responsibilities. I'm responsibility to pay the butler's fee, maybe provide his salary, provide him with room and board or whatever the case might be, and goodwill. So there's goodwill on the part of everybody here involved. So the butler agrees to be my servant, and he's just an excellent butler, and I can't live without him. Okay, in other words, he enters into a relationship with me, which allows me to do my work, okay? And that relationship with me allows him to fulfill his own little sphere of human activity, okay? So we have a bargain that's struck, and it may or may not last for whatever period of time, but it doesn't matter because we both entered into the bargain in terms of a free will contract. That's not the case with slavery. Okay, slavery, somebody captures me, puts chains on me, and then I have to make a decision whether or not I'm going to serve my new master or be killed or be tortured or whatever the case might be. And this is condign governance is what it is. Okay, so if you serve the government and the government is happy with your service, they're going to give you a certain amount of benefits. And it doesn't matter whether or not the government is morally correct or immorally incorrect. It doesn't really matter because you're in service to them according to a slavery sort of arrangement. If you don't do what they do, they cut off your benefits. Well, not exactly what happens if you don't service your covenant with your creator. I mean, if you don't service that, you're going to bring in a certain amount of hell because the Rahim grace is going to be removed. At least for a time, and the Quran speaks about this time and again with Prophet Suleiman, for example, and it tells the story of Suleiman, and Suleiman, did this, he did that, and how often. Well, he constantly returned to me, okay, and I forgave him. And so that's what you do, from a well-grounded paternal heart towards your children. You will forgive them. I mean, there's certain boundaries that are almost unforgivable, but in most cases, your children, they repent, they come back. You open up you grant them benefits. So the benefits that are given to a slave are different than the benefits that are given to a free will servant, is what I'm trying to get at here. And I'm wondering, because I'm not an Arabist and I'm not a linguist, I'm wondering how the Quran, from a Nunetics perspective, approaches this. And I would love to, for example, have a conversation about this with you and someone like Dr. Hani and a few other people, and and sort of expand on this, because you not only have the linguistic interpretation, but you have the hidden interpretation that's in the several layers of the Quran.
Yes.
See, so this idea of slavery versus service, okay. My servant, have you observed my servant Moses? Have you observed my servant Isa? Have you observed my service, Dr. Omar? You see, and there's a difference. There has to be a difference between servant, and slave. Okay, and I'm just wondering what that is for my own benefit and for the sake of our listeners, dear instructor Bilal. So I hope that inspires you with sufficient momentum to answer this question.
I'm revved up.
Oh man, okay, let's go. We're back on track then.
All right.
Alhamdulillah.
All right. And interrupt me anytime you want to.
Okay.
Because I'm going to say a lot in a little bit of time.
All right, there we go.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, with Allah's signature, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. And we thank Allah for that mercy, for those benefits, and for that redemption. We're being redeemed every second of the day. Even on the cellular level, we're being redeemed. Cells are dying and new ones are being born.
That's
to
correct.
Take their place. Yeah, that's redemption. We have to die to our old minds before we can come into a new one. It's really that simple. And dying to old thoughts and old ideas is easy for people whose intention is to not only create themselves, but to even recreate themselves. And the purpose of recreation, or what the world now calls recreation, which they just turned into playtime.
Yes.
It was originally recreation, recreating yourself. But they've turned it into playtime. But the original purpose of recreation was so that we would continue to grow towards that relationship that we all yearn for, in connection with whoever created us. We're still on the journey to determine who that one is.
Yes.
We say Allah, some people say Jehovah, some people say Yahweh, some people say the Elohim. Doesn't matter. The whole idea is that we are all on that journey.
Yes.
Now, this idea of slavery versus servitude is very perceptive of you to notice that there is possibly a difference, and a significant difference. And then I'm going to give you the Quranic term for both of those words.
Thank you.
And you're going to probably be surprised at what it is.
Very good.
Slavery is what you have already outlined in terms of forced obedience to a higher power. And you can see in the word obedience, the word abd, which is the Arabic word for what they are translating as slave.
Say that again, please.
Okay. The Quranic word that they have translated, and I say incorrectly, as slave is the word abd, A-B-D.
Abd.
Yeah,
A-B-D. Abd.
right. The plural of which is ibad. So when we say Abdullah, they say we're saying slave of Allah. Abdullah, slave of Allah. With the word for slave again being abd, A-B-D, if we were to transliterate it into English letters. Now, slavery is forced. Slavery is, you don't have choices in slavery. Slavery is, we captured your people and here's what you have to do, whether it's for 7 years or forever. Here's what you have to do because you are now my slave. Servitude is what the butler does. And the nanny and the guy who goes to work every day and punches the clock. That's servitude. Servitude has a limited amount of time for you to participate. And there's a choice at the end of the day. I'm going to go home. There's another choice. I don't like it here. I'm going to quit. I'm going to find another job.
Yes, yes.
But you are in service to that particular occupation, that particular company or business or effort or endeavor. You're in servitude, not slave. You don't have to stay there. You're not going to get whipped if you don't go to General Motors this morning.
Right.
Except in your pocket, you'll get whipped.
Yes, yes, right.
So that is what the difference between slavery and servitude are. Now I'm going to back up just a little bit because our dear friend, Mr. Abraham Lincoln, although the promise was there of 40 acres and a mule, the actual transpiring of that deal did not come through for most slaves.
Yes, it was cut off, I understand.
It was hardly begun. But remember now, you're dealing with Masons.
Yes, right.
And Masonic language is not regular language. Black's Law Dictionary definitions are not regular Webster American Heritage definitions.
Of course they're not.
In the Black Laws Dictionary, if you look up the word human, it's going to say monster. You know this, right?
Yes.
So they're not regular definitions. They're legal definitions, and they are kind of like even secret society kinds of definitions.
Yeah.
So when they said 40 acres and a mule, they weren't necessarily talking about the literal mule to work your farm or to work your land and the 40 acres. Why 40? Why not 30? You know, it's like this whole thing with the COVID thing, 6 feet, 6 feet apart. Why not 7 feet apart? You know?
Yeah, right.
Why did they choose 6? You know, every time these people who are in these ruling positions, so they think, give us this numerology. That's all it is numerology.
Yeah, right.
It means something within their circles that is way above the heads of the average one of the masses of people.
Yes, of course.
So 40 is a very important number in religion, even in Islam, where we say that the prophet became prophet at 40 years old.
Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of things happened at 40. So it was secret language, as far as I'm concerned. And the mule that they were giving us was simply the donkey head that they wanted us to be comfortable with and be satisfied.
The Democrat.
With. That well, you know, it came to be. Yeah. That's what it was. Even back then, that's what it was. The mule and the elephant. They didn't want you to be an elevated font.
Yes.
They didn't want your words to be lofty and elevated. They wanted you to be a mulish.
Yes.
You know, donkey.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, related to the dung, stubborn. You know that mentality.
Yes,
not necessarily a political idea, just an idea that they wanted the masses to be captured by.
Yes.
All right. So that's that. Now, the idea of heaven and hell in Scripture, and I believe this to be true for all scriptures with minor variations. The ideas related to heaven and hell are actually ideas related to the energy systems within the human body that some people in India call the chakras.
Yes.
And in the West, in medicine, they have other names for the same levels of energetic frequencies within the human body.
Sure.
And as you know, the standard number of chakras in the human that run up and down the back of the spine, the standard number is 7.
But there are more.
There are more. In fact, it's an interesting thing that according to the best of those who established that science out of India, they say that there are actually 114 chakras with 7 major ones. And like I told my class last night, what does that sound like? The Quran has 114 surahs with 7 major ones called Al-Fatiha.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Wow. Now,
yeah.
there you
but
go.
The chakra idea came out before the Quran was revealed, which
sure.
proves to me, again, that the Quran is addressing wisdom that is age old.
Yes.
It's not addressing wisdom that began 1,500 years ago.
Oh, what came before?
It tells you that way before. All right.
Yes.
Now, out of those 7 major chakras, the one in the middle is called the heart chakra. It's the 4th chakra. So from the bottom, 1, 2, 3, then the middle one, 4, that's the heart chakra. Then above the heart chakra, another 3. 1, 2, or I should say 5, 6, and 7.
Yes.
So it puts the heart chakra, number 4, right in the middle, and they give it the color green, like your garden. So could it be possible that when the Quran speaks about the garden, that it is also speaking about the mid-level chakra? And especially when you examine what Allah says in the Quran about the middle salah. I'm not translating that as prayer. Allah says, guard the middle salah. Could he be asking us to guard whatever that midsection garden environment is in you? And we know that things are supposed to grow in the garden. We know that the typical farmer has to be careful that weeds and certain kinds of animals and insects don't infest the garden. Well, it's the same thing with the human spirit. It's the same thing with the human growth and development on the internal level. We have to be observant. We have to be observant so that the foreign things of this life don't become an infestation for us, disallowing us that growth that Allah intended. So I'm taking the scenic route again, as I normally do.
Of course.
Yeah. Now,
I'm going to follow these 114 meridians.
Yeah. Nice. All right. Now, the Quran's word for what they're translating as slave is abd, as I said, ibad, if we're talking about plural. And it is a combination of 3 consonants, actually. And they are the A, B, D. Abd. A, B, D. Now, you and I have spoken often about what's called the A of negation.
Yes.
In language, which means that the A, if it begins a particular word, whatever word can be formed after that, the A is negating it.
Yes.
So therefore, we have to know what the B and the D mean.
Yes.
In language.
Remind us, please.
Yeah. Well, people are going to be figuring this out on their own with their English brain, not their Arabic brain. Most of us don't have Arabic speaking brains. I know I don't.
Yes.
But I have a very good English brain. And I know that the combinations of the consonants B, D, which can also be B, T, because D and T are interchangeable. That's what they call dentals. Ta.
Yes.
Da. Your tongue has to touch your teeth, the 2 top front teeth. So now we're looking in English for BD words and BT words. BD, let's start with the first one, the obvious one, especially if you're tired as I am. Bed.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Now, if I were to choose a BT word in Arabic, I'd say bait. And there's a relationship between a bed and a bait. Bait means house in Arabic. And in the olden days, before the invention of 55-inch screen televisions, which we now stay in the bait all day long watching, back in the day of tents and smaller places, the house was the place that you went to for rest, for sleep.
Yes, right.
That was the main purpose of the house. I've been working in the field all day. I've been working on the tractor all day, and now it's time for me to go home, maybe get a little something to eat,
sure,
and put my feet up, man, and rejuvenate. All right. But he doesn't do that forever. It's not a grave.
Yeah.
It's a bed. It's a place of temporary repose. Now we get into the real meaning of abd. It's a place of temporary rest or repose. Now, if I place a bet, B-E-T, I'm either going to win or lose. It's not going to go on forever. There's a cutoff point, just like there's a cutoff point to me being in my bed. Yeah. The sun rises, I'm energized, time for a new day's work, right?
Right.
Even human beings who are bad, no human being is bad all of the time. It's not your nature.
Yes, of course.
It's not your nature. So without mentioning any names of bad people in history, just suffice it to say that nobody is bad 24/7. Nobody. Allah didn't, that's a demon. That's not a human if you find one like that. So even being bad, and take the example of our children when they do naughty things, you know, they do things that they get spanked on the hand, on the butt for, you know. But the badness in our children is not forever. It's temporary. It's a temporary attitude, or something snapped in that child, and he thought he could get away with saying that to his father.
Yes.
Or to his mother. You don't tell me what to do. Oh, no? Go get the belt. Right? All right. So all of these things are pointing to temporary activity. So Abd, having the A of negation, it negates whatever the BD is, and BD in all of these situations represents a temporary thing, a temporary action. So the A is saying that it is not temporary. The A is negating that word. That means that Abd is forever. You understand?
Yeah.
Let me go a little deeper into it. When Allah calls you his Abd or his Ibad, he is saying that you are in service to his will voluntarily. You choose this, to be in service to the will of your source creator, but that agreement is not temporary. It's not sometimesy. It's not when you feel like it. If you're going to engage in this contract with me, Allah speaking, understand that it's going to be forever.
Yes.
Now, the difference between being in contract or in service or servitude to Allah forever and being in service to humans forever is the difference between slavery and servitude. Servitude, they get a little break. They get a lunch break. they get a rest. Slavery, as humans have established it, you don't get any of that. But for Allah, again, it's not really servitude to Allah. It's not. If we had to choose one of those words for what we are to Allah, we'd have to say we are slaves to Allah, but voluntary. See, there's the difference. You are voluntarily committing yourself to a lifelong endeavor related to your source creator. You are his abd when you are awake during the day. You're his abd when you're asleep overnight. You're his abd when you're about to do something that you know you shouldn't do, and you call to mind your relationship and commitment to Allah, right? So it's the recall of your relationship with your source creator, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim, that source creator. It's the recall of that idea that I am in permanent obedience, abd, obedience to my source creator voluntarily. I could choose not to do it as a human. I have a brain that can make these kinds of choices, but I have to suffer the consequences for the choices that I make. So those of us who are Muslims, even those who commit to being Christians or commit to being Jews or commit to being Buddhists or whatever you're committing to, if you're doing it consciously, then you are in abd. of that idea.
Mm-hmm.
That means you have voluntarily committed yourself to a contract that never runs out. It runs all the way into death, and then whatever happens on the other side of death, you're still an abd of Allah.
Mm.
So this is the thing that distinguishes the worldly slave from a slave of Allah. The worldly slave gets only what the master wants that slave to have. And most of the time it's minuscule, stuff, just enough to keep you alive food-wise, and just enough tattered clothes. You know how they did the slaves, right?
Sure.
But with Allah, when you engage in what they would call slavery, you come into all of the benefits. You have that opportunity to come into multiplied benefits. Blessings, we call them barakat, right?
Yes.
So that's the difference. You go into slavery for men, you lose. You go into slavery for Allah, you gain, and you keep on gaining from this life and into the afterlife. You're still gaining. You're still winning. You're on the winning team for as long as you commit. Now, you mentioned this word that your wife actually mentioned called desolation.
Yes.
And she said that it was the de-souling of something. And she's absolutely on point with that. And it's also related to the word isolate. So wherever you see the letters SL in a word, especially the ones that actually have SOL, it's talking about something that's taking place in your soul. Remember, these are people who established.
She also mentioned it. I'm sorry. She also mentioned it in terms of salat, the word salat.
Yeah, because salat has everything to do with your soul. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. The soul, the SL in soul actually represents connection. It represents a connection. So to de-soul is to de-salat.
Is to disconnect.
Is to disconnect. And when you disconnect from the power source, you know what happens to the tool, no matter how fancy it is.
Yeah.
No power, no activity, no product, no producing. And that is the ideal situation that the spiritual manipulators want humanity in general in. They want us to be de-souled.
Yes.
They want us to be isolated. So you get it? 6 feet, 6 feet apart.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah, they want the souls to become ice.
Yeah, all of that is just an exercise. Conditioning exercise is what it is.
Exactly. So isolate means that they're instituting a practice that will actually put the soul on ice.
Yeah.
You understand?
Gotcha.
Yeah. A very famous African-American leader, I forget his name. He came out with a book called Soul on Ice.
Yeah. Well, the mafia used to use that term too for other reasons.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you add the word,
one of their chief assassins was called the Iceman.
Yeah. Okay, that was the other book, The Iceman Cometh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when you tag on the end word of isolate, you have late, and late means dead. The late Dr. Martin Luther King,
Yes.
We use that word late to mean dead. So if the soul becomes ice, frozen, not able to do what the soul was intended to do, then the soul dies.
Yeah.
And it dies for us whenever we choose or are manipulated into isolating ourselves from other humans like ourselves. And that was the biggest scheme that was perpetrated with the COVID issue.
Yes, it was.
The biggest scheme was to keep you apart from other human beings until you could feel no more sensitivity. That's what ICE does.
It forced you to deny your sensitivity.
Yes,
you can't go visit you weren't not permitted to visit your dying loved one in the hospital.
Isn't that terrible?
How god-awful that is.
How
I can't believe my professional colleagues permitted that to happen.
Yeah.
It's shameful.
It is. It's criminal.
Criminal, yeah. That too.
It's criminal. Now, let's go arrow back to Ibad or Abd. Abd, more accurately, means what the English word initiate means, although I don't like that word because, again, secret societies have used that word.
Yeah, but there's a proper place for it.
That's what we're
And
discussing now.
yeah, okay, very good,
Yeah, there
please.
is an absolute. I am an initiate
Mm-hmm.
for
Yes,
Allah.
of course.
I am an abd of Allah. I am an
Mm-hmm.
initiate, because
Yes.
initiate means that you're always beginning. You're always initiating. You never
No,
think you
yeah,
got the whole thing.
exactly.
Yeah,
It's
it's a
protean.
beautiful word.
It's permanent. It's being in a
Yes,
permanent protean state.
yes, that's what we're
Mhm.
talking about, right?
Yeah.
So the
Hmm.
world can take these terms and corrupt them, but it shouldn't preclude us from using them appropriately, and that's what we're doing now. We're
Yes.
sending it through the wash and the rinse, and now it's ready for us to wear, minus
Hmm.
the grease and the tar and stuff that they got on the term.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
Now, we are initiates of Allah, and an
Mm.
initiate always sees him and herself as learning something new.
Yes. Always.
You can't be an abd of Allah unless you choose to learn new things. You
Yes.
cannot remain satisfied with what you have already been taught because you were 3 years old and they forced this on you, or nobody can be a Muslim by force.
Yes.
Everybody becomes a Muslim by choice. I don't care
Yes.
if you say you're born, there's no such thing as being born into a Muslim family. Muslim is
Hmm.
not an ethnicity.
Yes.
Muslim is an activity that you agree to perform.
Mm.
It has to do with peace. It has to do with safety. It has to do with wholeness.
Yes.
The word salam means that you are agreeing to become whole. And that's what the initiate is doing.
Mm.
Trying to find information from this quarter, from that quarter, from the third, from the fourth quarter, and bringing them
Hmm.
all together holistically. That's actually the truest meaning for the word halal.
Hmm.
Whole,
Yes.
halal,
Yes.
holistic, right? So the Muslim is always in an effort to complete him and herself. That's what this whole journey is about.
Yes. Of course.
We come here incomplete, doctor, as you know,
Hmm.
and every step of the way, we are attempting to consciously, once we become aware and awake, to consciously find those pieces of the puzzle that represent the completion of our life before we leave here. How much can we get done that Allah is going to be pleased with when he looks at that puzzle picture of ours? There'll be some
Yes.
missing pieces. Yeah, because there's some missing PEACES. There's some
Hmm.
missing piece in the life,
Yes.
and
Of
that
course.
disturbs the soul. So the soul is in a constant struggle to find those missing pieces.
Hmm.
Once we complete ourselves as a family, now we want to complete ourselves as a tribe. Okay, we know each other. Who are those people on the other side of the mountain? Let's go see if we can make friends with them. Maybe we have
Yes.
stuff we can share with them. They have stuff they can share with. Maybe we can barter stuff now. So the human
Yeah.
soul has been created for expansion.
Hmm.
That's what Salat is supposed to be. Expansion of the soul,
Hmm.
not contraction of the soul. Only
Hmm.
contracting away from those things that will do the soul harm or
Yes.
damage.
Yes.
So it's like the heart. You
Yeah.
expand to join with those people who are congruent with your
Hmm.
concerns,
Hmm.
and you contract away, just like the cell does, CELL,
Hmm.
in staving itself off from those things that could damage its interior life, the DNA.
Hmm.
The membrane will close in on itself so that no damaging materials can get in there. So the cell does what the soul does what the salat does. It's a protection against those things that will enter into the interior
Yes.
and do damage.
Yes.
And they call that around the cell the membrane. Now, if you've
Mhm.
allowed somebody in to knock a hole in your brain, your protection is lost.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's membrane, BRANE, but it's also pointing to BRAIN, that brain.
And that's the position of the Wali.
Yeah. Oh man. Nice, nice, nice. That's the position
Hmm.
of the Wali, to run interference, to provide the security wall or the wall of security around
Hmm.
that which
Yeah.
it knows to be precious and responsible for the ongoing life of the family.
Yes.
That father is the Wali. When that young man comes courting her daughter, He's got to walk. He's got to come through that wall, Lee. That wall. He's got to come through that wall. He can't go over it.
Yeah.
He can't dig under it. He's got to ask permission to come through the door
right.
of that wali, that wall of protection. And that's exactly what it is. Now, final idea. We're talking about the benefits of being an abd of Allah. In the English word benefit, it actually comes out of the Hebrew word ben. Ben, B-E-N, it means son of, S-O-N.
Yes.
So what is that saying that they know that we don't know? That the things that we're calling benefits, our welfare check, you got those, they got right on the check, benefits, they're on the card, right? The food stamp card, food stamp benefits. But that's a trick.
Yes.
Ben means son, and son means inheritor, and the one who carries the life of that family germ on into the future. It has to replicate. So if you're receiving funds from the government and you go to Walmart the next day and 2 days later, you ain't got no more money. You didn't know how to make that money benefit you. You didn't know how to reproduce or invest those funds so that you would have more funds that you're now not depending on the government for.
Yes.
Then those are not true benefits. Exactly. It's the same thing with life. The only thing that we can call a benefit is a thing that we're able to reproduce, like a son reproduces, or like a daughter who's called bint. The son is called bin, ibn in Arabic. The daughter is called bint. In Hebrew, the son is called Ben, like my name, Benjamin, son of the right hand, right? So those are the people who are truly benefiting from life. We say that Allah is the merciful benefactor, because a benefactor is setting up that person even unbeknownst to the person. A benefit. You don't have to tell me who you are as a benefactor if you're helping to assist me in paying for college or whatever. But whatever you're helping me to pay for is supposed to allow me to put myself in a position to replicate my work and my journey in this life. You shouldn't have to do that every 4 years. You should be able to put me through college. I should be able to get a part-time job, and the rest of it is on me. And that's what Allah does.
Yes.
Allah assists you all of the way along your journey, but he's giving you in a way that you should be able to put 2 and 2 together and say, okay, I see how this goes. I can increase my knowledge on my own, basically. I have the platform now. I have the scheme now for how to acquire more and more of this level of knowledge. And now you are benefiting yourself, you're benefiting your family, you're benefiting your community. And eventually, if you go on, you'll benefit the world. But if you're just selfish, taking in, then there's no benefit to anybody except you and your small circle. So the whole idea of the soul is to do that which will be responsible for the expansion of the soul. Once you reach that middle point, that middle salat, that green garden, that the Quran calls Jannah, you have to reach that level of soul development. It's not talking about something spooky.
Yeah, right.
And it's not even talking about something that you get into after you die.
Right.
And when Allah speaks about the fire, he's not talking about that which you come into after you die. We say, our Rabb, our Lord, grant us the good of this dunya. This is a dua from the Quran. And grant us the good of the akhirah, the life to come. It didn't say after you die. If we wait 60 seconds before we say the next thing, when that 60 seconds gets here, that is akhirah. Whatever comes after something is akhirah.
Yes.
Right? So we're asking for the good of the akhirah, the things that will come. And we ask to be saved from the fire. Now, how in the world can that be what we call heaven after we die? Because Allah doesn't promise you hell after you die. After you die, it's one way or the other. There's no more asking Allah for salvation. You're either saved or you're not, according to
Yeah,
Allah's judgment.
there's no more intervention. There's no more
Yeah.
petition.
Yeah. So the fire that you're asking to be saved for is not the fire of the physical hellfire after you die. The fire you're asking to be saved for is the fire of your own wayward and outrageous passions.
Yes, there you go.
If you can control the passions, and that's the journey of the soul, to get above the mundane, get above the materialistically inclined energies that are at the 3 lower levels of the chakra ladder. Once you get to the garden, it's like sliding into home plate without being tagged, right? You're home now. That's it. Well, listen, it's the Wizard of Oz story.
Yeah.
With the 3, the scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the lion.
Over the rainbow.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay,
what is the rainbow? The chakras.
Yes. Gotcha.
Same colors.
Yeah.
Same colors.
And it represents the covenant that we have with Allah after the flood or whatever that.
That's in the Bible. That's right. The rainbow was a sign of that, the covenant being completed.
And they're stealing it. They've stolen the rainbow.
I'm not going to name the alphabets. I'm tired of getting in trouble with them.
Yeah.
But they've stolen the rainbow.
Okay. Well, this have you finished, brother?
I'm finished for now. I told you, jump back in. This is like double dutch. I keep telling you. You gotta just take the rope and go for it.
Okay. I'm going to try and respond with some feedback, impressions. So this idea of the abd, the servant, is the person who chooses to come home and rest in God, as they say in the Old and New Testaments. So we find rest in God. They say this in the funeral dirges, and may he rest in peace. But hey, I want to rest in God now. I find that if I'm resting in God now, then this all this hellish fitna is far from me. It's put away.
Yeah.
And then I become an initiate, you see, because I learned something here. I learned that if I'm obedient, I can put this fitna away, and all I have to do is meet the challenges that are presented to me consciously, and with the help of God's grace, overcome those challenges. If I don't choose, all right, to become Allah's servant, then I don't get that grace to overcome the challenges. It doesn't happen. So to become an initiate here is to become like a child, to learn something.
Yeah,
That's in the New Testament. Unless you become as little children, you cannot enter the kingdom. You cannot enter the rest of God. I think I'm.
Except as little babes. Now. That's right. And
okay, so
all ears.
That's right. Then when you come into this place of what you call rest in the heart chakra, then if you're there long enough, you, especially after the age of 40, what happens? You have this right hand, and in this right hand is what? The staff. And this staff represents the tool that the wali uses to protect the fruit which is being generated. So this is the rod of Musa, if you will, and this is the rod that assures justice, because as one of the caliphs said, and I forget which one, without justice there are no walls, and without walls, walis, there is no Islam. And without Islam, there is no rest in God. So let me take this one step further. Dear brother.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, this is wonderful.
Fascinating.
You see, the teachers of false doctrine, they realize that, this feature is always regenerating itself, just like our cells regenerate itself. And the moment you hit it on the head, you bruise the feature, it's going to, send in the red blood cells, the white blood cells, and sort of heal the bruise. And within a little bit, 6 weeks later, hey, he's ready for the boxing ring again. And let's schedule another match. So they want to stop these matches, you see. So what do? How do they stop these boxing matches with the challenges that you're supposed to overcome by Allah's grace, with Allah's grace? You got to reach up there and take it. So if you're not, are you with me? I'm getting this thing
go
now.
ahead. Go. I'm
All
right
right,
there in
so
the ring. I'm right in the ring with you.
Hey man, I'm getting
in your
back there in
corner.
the ring.
I'm in your
I'm
corner.
getting back in the ring. I
Yeah.
need Allah's grace. And what's going to stop me from reaching up and taking Allah's grace as an initiate? Because I already know I want to serve God. You got all these people out there, they, different faiths, different belief systems, and they all want to serve God. So they're all trying to be Muslims. But what stops them from getting the Rahim grace? On this pathway, it's false doctrine.
Yeah.
And it causes a disconnect.
Every time.
Isn't it? Oh, Jesus. Have we gotten onto something here, brother?
We're onto something that we need to continue.
All right. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Well, I've missed you. I've missed these sessions, and I'm glad you're resettled in your new house. And
it's obviously mutual.
Yeah.
And you see what you said? See what word you used? You said resettled.
Resettled, yeah.
That's what the word rest means. It means reset.
Yeah.
That's why we rest at night, so the body can reset.
Yes.
The rest that this world gives us is death. Rest in peace. Live in hell, but rest.
Live in hell, rest in peace. No, I want to live in peace, man. And I've learned how to do it. I've learned how to do it.
I'm in it. I'm in it. I had my big toe in it this time last year. I had my big toe in the garden. I have my whole foot in there now.
All right. Alhamdulillah. Well, I think we should seek God's permission to continue these conversations so we can teach those coming up behind us how to step into the garden, brother.
Well, let's try to reach out to Omar Ramahi or whoever else we'd like to invite in on this particular conversation and see if they'll join us.
Oh, sure. Why not?
That would be great. 3 or 4 of us at this. That would be great.
All right. Well, let's do it next week then, inshallah.
Inshallah. All right.
Yeah, but Omar Ramahi, he's got a teaching schedule to keep to, so that might be.
Yeah, I know I'm scheduled for him soon. I'll check with him and see. But if not, listen, we might want to do one more round with just you and me, just to set the pace.
Okay, well, I'd like to take this further, but we've said that before about other subjects, and then we, sort of get sidetracked, whatever the case might be. It doesn't matter. I think
it's whatever Allah allows. We know that.
Yeah,
we know whatever we're teaching is what people need to hear at that time.
At that time, yeah. Exactly.
All right.
Well, I think I've exhausted my responses to you right now.
Well,
we've introduced a new topic, slavery versus servitude.
Yeah, and abda.
And,
permanent, voluntary servitude to Allah. That's abda.
Yes, that's abda. Well, thank you very much, dear brother.
My pleasure, as always. As always.
Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. So great to see you again.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to next Sunday.
Indeed.
And you said birthday, did you?
Yeah. The next Sunday is July 16th. I don't know the word for it. I keep saying Earth Day, birthday, give birthday. I don't know what it is. All I know is that
you're supposed to celebrate your mother. If you accept that. If you accept that,
exactly.
If you accept that hadith, I don't. I'll sing happy birthday to you, though. I'll be happy to do that. It'll be my honor.
I'm always good for a song.
There you go. All right. Yeah, I want to show off my singing voice anyway. It got me in trouble in the past, but now I know what to do with it.
Well, it's all good. Both you and I are music lovers, so
yes.
We'll look forward to doing that. Okay.
All right. Until next time. All right.
And we're good for Sunday is when we are with Angelo.
Yeah, Angelo will be the host, and you can sit back and just respond.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. It's what I
And
love to do.
I want to introduce Angelo because Angelo is he's from the Hispanic community, and as I said, he's intrepid. This is an intrepid businessman.
Yeah.
And I like
And
that
he's brilliant.
idea.
He's brilliant.
He's brilliant. He's
I
very
love him.
smart fella.
I don't even know him, and I love him.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So until Sunday,
Yes. Okay.
enjoy yourself and be blessed, brother.
Thank you, sir. The same for you and your family. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Once again.
Awesome.